Jen Psaki used to work for Barack Obama as a press secretary and a communications director. The news doesn't get more fake than her. Listen.
I really believe that sometimes we all just need to acknowledge how insane this moment we're living in really is. Think about it this way. Friday was, of course, January 5th, one day before the third anniversary of the January 6th insurrection incited by the former president.
It wasn't an insurrection when it wasn't incited by Donald Trump. Fake
So
news.
the same day is a major speech by the sitting president about the danger that the former president still poses to democracy. And then, on that same day, the United States Supreme Court announced it will hear a case on whether that former president can even be on the ballot because of his role in the insurrection. All in one day. It's also important not to lose sight of how we arrived at this moment.
Fake news.
And why we arrived at this moment.
You're fake news, Jen.
Because of the unprecedented actions of Donald Trump. That's why. And we're going to spend lots of time today talking about the specifics of that case and about the 14th Amendment. But even if the justices do leave Donald Trump on the ballot, his position as the pro-insurrection candidate isn't really in doubt, is it? I mean, take Trump's appeal to the Supreme Court earlier this week. Andrew Weissman, who's going to join me later in the show, tweeted this about that filing.
Oh, a tweet.
Any normal person would lead this brief by saying, I did not engage in insurrection.
Fake news.
But since Trump is embracing that conduct and not condemning it, he relegates that to a later aside. That's exactly the point. So justices very well may leave him on the ballot. We don't know. But Trump isn't even denying the core argument against him. He's not running from the insurrection. He's embracing it.
Because it wasn't an insurrection, Jen.
He's referred to the rioters as patriots.
Oh, she took some headlines from the fake news. Let's listen to Open Borders and Illegitimate Joe.
Donald Trump's campaign is about him, not America. Not
Liar, make America great again.
you. Donald Trump's campaign is obsessed with the past, not the future.
Liar.
He's willing to sacrifice our democracy, put himself in power. Trump won't do what an American president must do.
Mega.
He refuses to denounce political violence.
Liar.
So hear me clearly. I'll say what Donald Trump won't.
Oh, tell us.
Political violence is never, ever acceptable in the United States political system.
Donald Trump has said that.
Never, never.
You stole the 2020 elections from us. Prison for Joe Biden.
No place in a democracy.
Prison for Joe Biden. You cheated. You steal elections. You've been in office for over 50 years.
Insurrectionist and pro-American.
You can't be pro-open borders and pro-American. Listen to what this former press secretary and communications director for Barack Obama has to say on the fake news.
From the insurrection, he's embracing it. He has called January 6th a beautiful day. He's referred to the rioters as patriots. He has said he will pardon many of them. He has even played a version of the Star-Spangled Banner sung by imprisoned insurrectionists at his rallies. Just this weekend, 3 years to the day since he incited that violent mob, he called on President Biden to release the January 6th hostages, as he called them. And that's exactly the point that President Biden made in his speech on Friday. That this race is between...
Listen to these people clapping for Joe Biden.
No place in a democracy. None.
So fake.
You can't be pro-insurrectionist and pro-American.
You can't be open borders and pro-American.
You can't be pro-insurrectionist and pro-American. That's pretty straightforward. So yes, the insurrection was 3 years ago, but it is not in our past. It is very much a part of our present and our future, depending on what happens. It's already become a centerpiece of the 2024 campaign. Both Donald Trump and Joe Biden are essentially running on January 6th, but in vastly different ways. One looks at the events of that day, the death, the destruction, the literal and figurative attack on the rule of law, and celebrates it. And one is firmly against it. One stands with the Constitution, and one said he wants to suspend it.
Liar.
One supports
Fake news.
democracy, and one ignores it.
Prison for Joe Biden. Listen to this Democrat propaganda on the fake news.
second impeachment trial of Donald Trump, served on the January 6th House Select Committee, and he's now the ranking Democrat on the House Oversight Committee. It's so great to be here with you this afternoon, and Happy New Year to you as well. I wanted to start, Congressman.
Happy New Year to you, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I wanted to start, Congressman. I mean, it's so important, in my view, to call out the craziness, even when we feel numb to it at times. And when you hear Trump call the insurrectionists hostages, as he's repeatedly done this weekend.
They are
going
hostages.
as far as to say President Biden should release them. You were in the Capitol that day. You've spent the last few years working on this. How dangerous is this rhetoric? And what can be done, in your view, to counter these attempts to kind of rewrite history of that day?
Liar.
Well, obviously, it's a major insult and affront to the families of actual hostages still being held by Hamas. The Republicans released hundreds and hundreds of hours of TV security tape from January 6th. They've had months to examine it. They have not come up with a single shot which purports to capture an Antifa fighter or an FBI agent inciting the insurrection. Nothing.
Liar.
And yet they're still out there spreading their
He's a
propaganda
liar.
and disinformation about how it was really Antifa and FBI agents, which of course would make it strange to argue that all these people should be released and Trump's going to pardon them. Why would he want to pardon all these Antifa fighters? So there's no logic in their presentation. It really is
You have no
characteristic of
logic,
what you get
'cause you
from
lie.
authoritarian and fascist political parties.
Liar.
No question. And there's no logic really in Trump's argument here other than politics.
You're a
Right?
liar.
He is accusing Biden of being a threat
Fake
to
news.
democracy. And that projection, which you and I both
Listen to these fascists on the fake news.
know is crazy, and probably everybody watching know is crazy, it's kind of working with his base. How do you combat that? Do you need to combat that? Should we all be combating it?
Fake news. Propaganda.
Yeah, well, look, they've wrecked the Republican Party. When the Civil War started, Lincoln said that insurrection is the negation of the basic principle of democratic government, which is the people get to choose their own rulers.
The people get to choose their own rulers. I don't think that's what Lincoln said. Fascist.
And they have ruined the Republican Party. It started as an anti-slavery, pro-freedom, pro-immigration, anti-know-nothing party, and they've reduced it to a cult of authoritarian personality where...
Listen to this Democrat on the fake news admit that the Republican Party is anti-slavery and pro-freedom, but Donald Trump ruined all that.
And they have ruined the Republican Party. It started as an anti-slavery, pro-freedom, pro-immigration, anti-know-nothing party, and they've reduced it to a cult of authoritarian personality where Donald Trump even yesterday is engaging in what is essentially pro-slavery, anti-union rhetoric, saying that Abraham Lincoln could have avoided the Civil War by accepting the so-called Crittenden Compromise, which was a pro-slavery compromise that would have constitutionalized slavery for all time. And
You're a liar, and you're a member of the Democrat Party of Slavery. Fake news.
this is what they've done to the Republican Party.
Fake news, Jen.
It's true he's got this, I'm rubber, you're glue strategy.
Liar.
It's true he's got this, I'm rubber, you're glue strategy that when Joe Biden and the Democrats call them out for the authoritarian collapse of their party, they say, no, it's you attacking democracy. And we just have to go out and educate America about what actually has happened and trust in the good common sense of the people that they will recognize in Joe Biden, an honorable public servant who's been devoted to the common good his entire life, versus Donald Trump, who is a huckster, a rip-off artist, a compulsive liar, and a danger to the republic.
A huckster is such a good name, and I think there's no question that speech on Friday was intended to do exactly.
Fake news. Joe Biden has been in office for almost 50 years. He lies almost every single day. Donald Trump tells the truth. Fake news.
Understandable, I mean, in my view, I'm sure in yours as well, to be skeptical a bit of the Supreme Court, given a number of their rulings. But they have ruled in cases related to Trump, kind of against him in a number of scenarios, including ones about the release of documents, etc. How confident are you, and should people be, that they can be impartial in this 14th Amendment case, given there isn't really historic precedent, but that's the point of them facing it?
Well, it's true that the court has ruled a few times against Donald Trump. The arguments he advances are so outlandish and egregious that even the people on the court who he thinks owe him
Democrat propaganda
completely disgrace themselves. And I hope it would be the same way with Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. This is a case of major importance to the future of democracy in America. And the Constitution is clear. Just like you've got to be 35.
I can't believe anyone thinks Inside with Jen Psaki on MSNBC is real news.
The mastermind and the ringleader of the whole thing.
It's so hard to get into Trump's mind. I don't try to do it too often, but it seems pretty clear that he has been trying to pressure the court in some ways. And he said in the wake of the news, quote, "I just hope we get fair treatment. If we don't, our country is in big trouble."
Oh, so much pressure.
Do you hear that as attempts to intimidate the justices or pressure them? Or how should we be hearing that?
How should we be hearing that? She's asking a Democrat. Fake news.
Yeah, I mean, already you can hear in the right-wing media about how Justice Kavanaugh owes him and that they all owe Donald Trump. I mean, that is a mobster form of justice where it's not important.
News. He's such a liar.
What the law says, but what's important is which judge you know.
You're a liar, Jamie.
Made already that Justice Thomas needs to recuse himself because he's obviously biased by virtue of his wife's participation in the insurrectionary politics of January 6th and the weeks leading up to it.
Last month, by the Maine Secretary of State, certainly upped the pressure on the Supreme Court to act. And life hasn't exactly been easy for Shanna Bellows since she removed Trump from the ballot.
Poor Shanna.
Bellows and her family and her staff have faced threats and harassment since making the decision. Her home was even swatted over the holidays, which basically means someone made false emergency calls prompting a large police presence to erroneously respond to her house.
10 Republicans at least have been swatted in the last month, Jen, and I don't hear you reporting on that.
But
she's probably Democrats swatting
her, which is summed up in her original ruling. She wrote, quote, "I am mindful that no Secretary of State has ever deprived a presidential candidate of ballot access based on Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. I am also mindful, however, that no presidential candidate has ever before engaged in insurrection."
It wasn't an insurrection. Fake news.
Taking up the matter of Colorado may impact Maine. Of course, the Supreme Court is the final arbiter in constitutional law, and all of us, every single election official in this country, swore an oath to uphold the Constitution and the rule of law.
You don't uphold the Constitution or the rule of law. You unilaterally
the Supreme
took
Court
Trump off the ballot.
Ruling that impacts Maine. Meanwhile, however, that does not suspend the legal process here in our state. So I have voluntarily suspended the effect of my decision. And, as we look at deadlines, Maine's presidential primary is March 5th. As
much time as they want, but there's a data point to suggest that they're going to move very quickly, and that is this.
Former FBI General Counsel Andrew Weissman. He used to defend criminals for a living. He's a lying lawyer.
Schedule that they set to hear this case. This was, in legal terms, really lightning speed. All of the briefing was done over the holidays. They had all full briefing by January 2nd, and then 1 week later, for this Tuesday, they have oral arguments. So I would be surprised if we do not have a decision within a week or two after that. And the main issue there is, I think there's no question that Donald Trump is going to lose on his argument that he is somehow absolved of all possible criminal liability because he was a former president. I think that is a dead loser. The main issue is that currently there is a full stay of